A very good morning, good evening, good afternoon from wherever you are. This is the United Hotspot. We are live with the official pre-match press conference reaction after Erik Ten Hag confirms that he has got the full backing of Sir Jim Ratcliffe. That's an interesting one. It is a hot one that has been dropped by the boss himself. We'll talk a little about what exactly Man United is like ahead of that big one. Man United taking on Nottingham Forest. This is a team that gave us a good run for our money in the first leg. We had to fight from behind to get a win at Old Trafford. We are traveling now. What exactly should we expect? There is also some positive news concerning the injuries. I told you of the injury situation at Manchester United. Who will be back soon? Who will be back when? And how will we look when most of these players are back? That's exactly why we are back. Now, it's been a while since I came live because, of course, the devil, who is a liar, has been trying to fetter my attempts to come live and give you all this Man United news. But guess what? We've overpowered the devil. We are united and nothing can overpower us. Imagine if we are able to overpower all these so-called big guns when we are not even at our best, not even half of our best. Who tells you we can't just sort a single sound problem that we had? I think the sound is loud and clear now. It should be. Welcome to the United Sport. Let's get proper into this whole talk as we do get to talk about Erik Ten Hag and how exactly he looks ahead of that game against Nottingham Forest. First of all, first things first, I uh, I feel like there is a whole positive energy around Man United now that I can't even explain. I feel like there is a lot of positivity surrounding our club. I feel like everything that is going on points in a good direction. It feels like we are going to be okay. So if you are out there and you've been worried about the future of Manchester United, I'm here to tell you that with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, there is a certain positive vibe that has come that I find so interesting, and I only want to ride along until wherever it takes us. Let's get proper into it. Welcome to the United Sport. I know it's a rare one. I'm not sure I've been live at this time. It's where I am. It's 4:37. I'm not sure I've been live at this time, but it's going to become a habit. I'll be back later in your faces in about uh 6 hours from now. That's it will be 10 p.m. where I am. That's I'll be back live to give you something new, summing up what has happened during the day, but also a special one concerning the return of Greenwood. Remember, the transfer window, the January transfer window, is just around the corner, and Man United at a time like this is always leading the headlines. But let's stick to why we're here. So Erik Ten Hag comes out in this pre-match press conference and he says, "You know what, guys? I've got the full backing of Sir Jim Ratcliffe." And he has hinted on something like this before. I think immediately after that statement was put on the Man United website, I remember, I think that was before the game we won, the Aston Villa game. Erik Ten Hag said that he has always been updated with whatever that has been going on behind the scenes, that he has been in touch. And I saw the smile on his face, showing us that I knew what this was happening, which is a good thing. I feel it's a good thing that Sir Jim and the Glazers respected the boss and have always been keeping him in touch, telling him what's going on, the wholesale process and all, because obviously, hadn't he been alerted, I think it would have affected him in a way, because imagine you're hearing that they are selling the club and you're the manager, but you don't know to who and you know what your future is like. There's speculation in the media, people calling for your head. Sir Jim Ratcliffe should sack him or not, and all that. It brings a lot of uncertainty, and certainly inadvertently it will affect your performance as a manager and your focus. So it's a good thing that he comes out later to reveal that he had the full updates coming to him even before we got them. I feel like that's a positive thing. Then, of course, so he was asked about the whole, takeover situation. I've called it the takeover, but it's not really a takeover. The whole Sir Jim Ratcliffe situation, and he said that uh, he has been updated with everything, but also he says that Ineos wants to work with him, and he does want to work with them. They both want to push in the same direction. Of course, it's obvious that there should have been conversations with him and Sir Jimmy's team, definitely, about his job, because he's the manager, and obviously, as the manager, he has got to be the first person they contact when it comes to anything to do with the club, in terms of what do they want to do, because they are in charge of football and the manager calls the final shots, especially on the pitch. So the first person you want to be in touch with if you're taking over football matters at any So for me, I think it's a very good thing, and it's an important thing that you know yeah, is happening. It's a very important thing that happened, that Manchester United saw it right to be to put them to involve the manager in whatever that has been going on. And I also feel like the confidence that Erik ten Hag has now is brings a good energy in him and in the players. And I feel we just now need to focus on supporting him and everyone. Good enough, the results have started coming. Even before the arrival of Sir Jim Ratcliffe, we felt there was a little bit of improvement in how Man United was playing. I think there was, you can say that slowly we are beginning to get an identity under Erik ten Hag, and we are beginning to understand what he wants to play. And the players are, in a subtle way, beginning to learn how to execute it. He's beginning to get the players to execute it. The injuries are beginning to be falling off one after the other. Players are returning one after the other. He spoke about, the players that he's expecting mid-January to return, the likes of Casemiro, Lisandro Martinez, Harry Maguire. I think he spoke of Victor Lindelof as well. Maguire and Lindelof should be returning on the 8th of this month, of next month of July. Yeah, then, of course, players like Martinez as well, who dropped a press conference. Of course, there are some interruptions with my live. I do hope they don't go on. But anyhow, so we know that certain players are coming back mid-Jan, which is a huge boost, because then we'll have a proper idea of what Manchester United is bound to look like. Because we can't judge Manchester United and Erik ten Hag with the players, with the second and third fiddle team. We obviously want to judge him with the first team squad. So with most of these players returning, I feel like this gives him a fair judgment. We'll judge him fairly, and I know that really Erik ten Hag has proved to us that he can be a good manager. From if the first season is anything to go by. So for me, that's why I say there is a good positive energy around the club now that we just need to ride on to. And that's why I've been telling people we've got to back Sir Jim Ratcliffe, because crying and wobbling will not help anyone, because it's not going to change. If whether you like Sir Jim Ratcliffe or not, the Glazers are not going to hear you now. If they didn't hear the cries and pleas we made for a full sale, they are never going to hear you now. Actually, even Sir Jim Ratcliffe, it turns out, wanted to buy the full club, but he made it clear that the Glazers never wanted to sell. So he actually was smart enough and humble enough, and it was a statement of intent from him to be calm and collected, to try and go through the ordeal of negotiating with these greedy Glazers to even get just that 25%, which is entirely managing football. So for them, they don't want anyone to come into the business, because the club makes a lot of money for them. They don't want anyone to come close to the money. They just want people to help them with the football, because they don't really care about it anyway. So I feel, for me, that's why we just need to back Sir Jim Ratcliffe, because he's like us. He's a fan of the club, and he's been there. He's supported the club. He's watched games. So it's only right that we back him, really. And I love that Erik ten Hag now has the confidence that his job is secure. Of course, if the results don't come, that will change, because Sir Jim is here to solve football. Sir Jim Ratcliffe is here to get us results. Sir Jim is here to make Man United win games and go back to the top where United belongs. So if Erik ten Hag is not doing it, obviously the smiles he's wearing lately will not be a thing of every day. He will certainly be sacked, and he knows that. But I love that right now, at least he has got that assurance, and he's comfortable enough and confident enough to go out in the media in a press conference to say it. It's a big thing, and you can take it lightly, but I feel like that's a huge deal. That assurance is needed, especially for the manager. For us, the fans, we might not, but the manager has got to have that assurance that his job is secure if he's going to focus on the football and do his job. So kudos to Sir Jim and the team. Now, let's get proper into the news. So as we go into that Nottingham Forest game, remember, it's a difficult game. Nottingham Forest have got a few, just like Man United has got a motivation, because they are new owners, they are new people in charge of football football operations. Nottingham Forest as well is motivated, because they have got a new boss in Nuno Espirito Santo, and that alone, the new coach effect, as you saw his first game in charge, how he just obliterated, which team did they beat? Was it Sheffield that they beat by 3 goals coming from behind? So they are always going to be a hard nut to crack. And even if Nuno failed drastically, at Spurs, he's not a bad coach. You think about him as a Wolves coach. Maybe for at Spurs, the whole Spurs project was a mess. Even Antonio Conte, a guy who has won the Premier League before, who has competed at the highest level in the Champions League, struggled at Spurs. So Spurs has got his, he's he's been able to at least come into this club, into this Nottingham Forest team and motivate the players to come and put on performances that can actually shake anyone. And I'm judging by his first game in charge. So I think it's a hard game to end there for us. We had a hard time against Nottingham Forest in the first leg. Remember, we had to come from behind to win that one. I think Bruno scored in that game and a couple of few others. So it is not going to be an easy game. So that is why I feel we've got to take it, we don't have to take it lightly at all. But talking about the team and the squad, if you judge by how Man United played the last game against Aston Villa, and I don't want us to rest on our laurels because we know that Man United's season has been like this, up and down. So we play PlayStation football at some point, then we drop back to a historical low. We've not been consistent. And Erik Ten Hag himself, in his own admission, stated it that the biggest issue he has got is the players do not have the quality to be consistent. Now, that's a huge problem that Man United has suffered. So I feel like we have got to back the manager right now because he's trying to realize consistency. And for that to happen, even the fans from the stands should be shouting and supporting and pushing in the same direction. So we cannot rest on our laurels and think that it's all done. We are way far from it. We've got a long way to go, but we've got the personnel because most of our injured players are back. Think about the Aston Villa game. I thought for me, you could have debated. There could have been debates. If Garnacho, for example, did not score a brace, there could have been debates about who the man of the match was. And probably about 4 or 5 Man United players could have thrown in the ring for man of the match. You would think of Højlund by virtue of the fact that he scored the winning goal, which was his first goal for United. You would think of Marcus Rashford, who I thought had a huge role to play in that victory. You think about Bruno Fernandes, he made a record there. I think he made 5 passes in the box, the most, I think, in the whole year of all players in the Premier League. You've talked about Christian Eriksen, who to me was the mastermind of that victory. I think whereas he did not score, Christian Eriksen is the reason Manchester United played the way we did. You can talk about Kobbie Mainoo and how he calmly held and took charge of that single pivot role. You can think of Johnny Evans, who was oozing confidence left, right, and center. You can think of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who was fighting and winning every ball. 1v1, Aaron Wan-Bissaka is arguably among the best in the world. To build on that performance. Manchester United has got to build on that performance. So it's very important for us to be careful how we now handle the games going forward. The only issue I have, though, is that Erik Ten Hag just loves to tinker. Don't be surprised if in the next game he chooses to go for Scott McTominay starting ahead of Christian Eriksen or Kobbie Mainoo. And that's for me the issue. That's where the issues begin. He loves to tinker at the wrong time, and I think it's a wrong thing. You don't fix it if it's working. So whereas we are excited about our performances, understandably and rightfully so, I think we've got to be careful how we handle Nottingham Forest and of course all the upcoming games after this. We want to end the year on a high. It's important. It's extremely important. We can't take Nottingham Forest for granted. We can't afford to rotate players, yet they're performing. In fact, I wouldn't mind if Erik Ten Hag started the exact same team that beat Aston Villa, because you want to pick up a flow. We want to get a rhythm. We have not been in the rhythm for 3 or 4 consecutive games at all this entire season. We have struggled. The biggest problem United has had is the lack of consistency. So for me, I think it's very important that Erik Ten Hag, consistency is built with personnel. It's not built in tinkering. You don't tinker and you think you're building consistency. Consistency is to do with personnel. But as we get back into that game, and I want to just talk about the returnees. So Amad Diallo, I feel, might be in the squad tomorrow. because I was watching videos early morning when I woke up. The first thing I did was to look for videos of the training session of Man United, and I felt like Amad Diallo looked sharp. Even in training, he was beating guys off easily, more easily than Antonio Dos Santos. In 1v1 situations, he was dribbling better and beating off his men quite easily. So I feel like Diallo might be in the squad, maybe not starting, but he could be in the squad, in the Man United squad for that game against Nottingham Forest, and he could have a few minutes in that game, which I think he needs because we need to see him starting. I also feel like he has put on some bit of muscle. He was too tiny. I feel like he has put on a little bit of muscle. He had lost weight just like I have. I think I've lost a lot of weight lately because these days I'm always home most of the time, and when I'm home I'm too lazy. When I'm home alone, I'm too lazy to prepare a meal for myself until I'm starving. I don't know whether it happens to you too. I think it's a men's thing where we get lazy to cook until we have to. But anyhow, so I feel like Diallo put on some bit of muscle, and I want to see. I'm excited. If there is one player I want to see on the pitch and see how it looks. I know that we are loaning out Hannibal Mabry. There was talk of loaning out Facundo Pellistri. I want to see how Amad Diallo looks because of all our young players, except Kobe Maino, of course, because he's no longer, yes, he's young in age, but in terms of player and profile, I think he's now a marquee player at United. But of all our young upcoming players, I think I have a lot of confidence in Diallo. And I'm so happy that he's back training. I am so impressed that he looks sharp and fresh rather. I hear fresh. I'm so impressed that he looks sharp and fresh. So I want to, at least before the end of this year, I want to see Diallo on the pitch and see what he can do. But the reality is Manchester United now is in a good place that we cannot afford to mess. We can't afford to mess what we are building. But going back again to the press conference and what Erik Ten Hag said, talking about the players, I told you certain players will be back in Jan, and you can imagine when most of these players, and by the way, I want to open your eyes to something. I've been in the past couple of days, all I've been doing is to try to study all our opponents and see how good they are. And let me just get for you, this squad. I feel like with all our players fit at 100% fitness, I feel like actually this Manchester United squad, player per player, could be better than most of the teams above us. We are currently 7th on the pile, just 2 points ahead behind West Ham, who beat Arsenal. But you think of our squad with all our players fit, look at that, and we can all debate about how that squad would look. And this is why, for me, I feel like the future of Manchester United looks good with the personnel we have. That's why I don't want Man United to rush into transfers in January, because when we first want to have all our players fit and give them time, and we make a proper judgment, because if you have all players fit, it will be obvious who the weak link is. If all our players are fit, I'm feeling we can actually be player per player. Look at that. In goal, Andre Onana. Of course, there can be debates about Onana. We're going to talk about him a bit and his U-turn. But look at that. Andre Onana, Martinez is returning on the 14th of January. His recovery is well and steady. Rafael Varane, but we also got Harry Maguire returning before Varane, on the 8th of January as well. Wan-Bissaka on the right. Diogo Dalot is looking impressive. Dalot has challenged Bissaka that actually Bissaka is looking better now. Then Luke Shaw on the left. Luke Shaw initially had no significant competition, but actually Diogo Dalot could be good competition for Luke Shaw lately, because whenever Dalot has been trusted on the left, he has put in some good shift for himself. Of course, not at the levels of Luke Shaw, but even Luke Shaw himself is not improving. I feel like he's sort of stagnating in a way, and that's why I still think one of the areas United needs to sort is that left back position, the left and right back. The two departments for me are not as solid. In fact, I will insist we have bigger issues in the full back positions than we do in the central defense. Personally, I would, if it's up to me and we've got little money to spend, we would rather spend on a backup for Luke Shaw than spend on a centre back, because with Kobe Maino in the middle, Casemiro fit, and Amrabat there, they will cover any defender, any centre backs we have. That's what I think. I think they will ably cover any. It doesn't matter who is playing. Lindelof, I can also play centre back if I've got Kobe Maino playing ahead of me with Casemiro. But look at that squad, and let me go back to my point. Look at that squad. In the midfield, I feel like we've got big competition for places. Already Hannibal Mabry, I think, can't fit yet. We believe He has been looking sharp. Of course, he could have dropped a little bit, but he's been looking sharp. He's only 20, but already because of the competition in the middle, when all players are fit, Handball maybe is knocked out. He's going out on loan. But you think of Kobe Maino, who has organized our midfield since his advent, his emergence. Casemiro returning and fully fit. Then you've got Amrabat, who has been improving slowly, but surely. Then you've got Bruno, Scott McTominay, Mason Mount. So you think about the midfield and you're thinking, if these players are fit and we've got a consistent run where they are playing every day and trying to improve. There is a new sheriff in town, of course, man in charge of football, monitoring them. Because at times all the players need is that pressure that if you're not performing, you'll be sold or you'll be your contract can be terminated or something. So my feeling is this squad is actually not as bad. We could have probably been a little too harsh, and I can't be as guilty as charged. We could have been, I personal as well. I'm not excluding myself. We all could have been a little too harsh on Erik ten Hag, but forgetting that this team has got injuries. But when all these players are back and fit, this Manchester United can give any team a run for their money. Erik ten Hag said it in his press conference, saying that even with the injuries we had, we've proven that we can be competitive, which we've seen against Liverpool, against top table teams, Aston Villa, teams that are ahead of us. Even against West Ham, we lost, but we played well. So you think about it and you're saying, do we need to rush into transfers in January? We might make the same mistakes we've been making for years, rushing to sign the wrong players, making quick fixes. So for me, I actually think we might not need to rush into transfers in January. For me, the only rush I think we need to do in January is bring back Mason Greenwood. That's the only rush we need to do. But you look at that squad with all these players fit, Maguire is looking improved. You can again debate about Maguire and whether he should be the one starting ahead of Rafael Varane. So Man United is really, really not as bad. And that's why I think we just need to be patient. So you look at that, and for example, go player per player against a team like Arsenal. Yes, against a team like Arsenal, player per player. David Raya in goal against Andre Onana. I think there are debates about it. Raya also makes mistakes. I think put David Raya in this Man United with the poor back defenses we've had, that Onana has been having in front of him, with the injuries we've had, probably David Raya would have conceded more goals than Onana, I think. So in goal, I don't think David Raya is a better goalkeeper than Andre Onana. Go to the back line. Martinez, for me, is one of the best centre-backs in the league. Rafael Varane, obviously, is one of the best in the world. On the left, Luke Shaw. You compare Luke Shaw, who is Arsenal's left back. Zinchenko, maybe for now, Zinchenko can have a slight edge over Luke Shaw, but by and large, I think Luke Shaw could be a better footballer when he's fully fit than Zinchenko. On the right, Wan-Bissaka and Ben White, or Diogo Dalot and Ben White, there are debates. They are not far off each other. You can debate who is better. Ben White could be, Bissaka could be, or Dalot. They are close. In the middle, Kobe Maino and Declan Rice, I think Kobe Maino is better by far. Casemiro and who? Casemiro and who do you compare Casemiro with at Arsenal? Is it their captain? Odegaard? Martin Odegaard? You can debate there who is better. Maybe, of course, Casemiro has been injured, but if we judge by the prime Casemiro of last season, who is the better player, I think your guess is as good as mine. Bruno Fernandes and Arsenal. Who is Arsenal's number 10? Who can we go for there? Okay, let's put there Kai Havertz. Obviously, Bruno is better. The guy is breaking records for fun. Marcus Rashford on the wing and Martinelli. Arsenal supporters are cursing Martinelli lately. Rashford had a bad spell, which happens to players. But Rashford, a guy who scored 30 goals last season, obviously is more proven than Martinelli. Rasmus Højlund and Gabriel Jesus. In terms of potential, Højlund for me has got a lot of potential, but of course Jesus has scored more goals and won more Premier League titles. So again, there are debates there. It is close. Garnacho and Bukayo Saka. Right now, I think Garnacho is the hottest forward in the Premier League, if the last game is anything to go by. So Man U is not that bad. Bring Man City. Compare this Manchester United player per player, position per position to Man City. Man City is struggling left, right, and center. It's not by mistake that they are not even in the top 3 now. So for me, I think in all fairness, after critically looking at this squad and being honest, we are not as bad. We probably, as supporters, we are not always going to be that patient. We will want to put the pressure on the manager and all, but United is not that bad, and we've got a bit of depth. I think of all the top 6 clubs in the league, with all players fit, I think we might have more depth than any other team in the league. Yes, I think so. We might have more depth in our squad than any other team in the league. So that's why I think we need to give it time. There is no reason for us to worry. I think this squad going into the January transfer window, which is just days away, a few hours away, just over 48 hours away. I think Manchester United is not doing bad. We shouldn't rush into the transfer window. And I believe what Erik Ten Hag is saying, that we can actually do better when all our players are fit. Give it to them that we've managed to perform the way we have with all the injuries we've had. We've been, of course, we've been right to call out the manager on certain wrong decisions, but I mean, because some of them were glaring, like the delayed substitutions, like the wrong substitutions, like the wrong selections, insisting on Scott McTominay when he has got to be benching him. But when he has benched him, we've been vindicated. Insisting on a single pivot when you don't have a powerful player to manage it. When he has changed that, we've been vindicated with all our statements. So I feel like it's a matter of time that this squad actually has a lot to offer. So let's be patient with it. But let's go back again into the news. I'll take you back and forth. But the biggest news today was Erik Ten Hag himself coming out to confirm that he's here to stay because Sir Jim Ratcliffe is backing him. Ineos wants to work with him, and he does want to work with them as well. For me, that has been a concern because you would imagine the thought process of Erik Ten Hag with all that's going on, with a new owner and all. Obviously, he should have been under pressure if they were not communicating to him. But now that he has confirmed himself that they are, we can now focus on the football and scrutinize him. But even him, his pressure has been eased because right now there are new guys to answer football questions. Of course, they are not yet ready. It will take about 6 weeks or 8 weeks. But the reality is there is now more reason for us to focus on the football than everything around it because we know there is someone we can trust at the top of it. Going back to the earlier story that came out today. So there's a story that emerged today about Andre Onana and him saying that he wants to stay a little longer so that he doesn't go to join Cameroon for the Africa Cup of Nations. That's next month, mid next month or early next month. And the talk now is about Altel Baindil and whether what Andre Onana is doing is right because it seems to be overshadowing, the Turkish, the Turk. I think it's the Turk. I think that's an adjective. That's the is it a noun of a person who is from Turkey? It's called a Turkish or a Turk, whatever it is. The person from Turkey. So Altel Baindil is from Turkey. So I feel like Andre Onana, and whereas I understand, say it's not the right timing for him to leave, and he has to fight. He has a lot to prove to himself, to the manager, to the fans, and everyone. But I also feel like as a player, a high-profile player of that stature, you've got to have a certain level of confidence in yourself and in your art. Him coming out to try and make a U-turn and say he wants to be there for the game against Wigan in the FA Cup, for me, sort of shows a person who is not confident in himself. It sort of shows a guy who is not focused, a guy who is not decided, a guy who has a weak mindset, a weak mentality. And this might sound oxymoron because just a few days ago when he released that interview, when the interview was released of him and Man United, he seemed to have a strong mentality that even when he was quizzed about the tough times and things not falling his way, he had the right answers and the right mentality, saying things will be okay. I feel like if you're that kind of a character, you cannot be then the one making a U-turn. The day after your club has confirmed that you're leaving for the AFCON, and everyone is excited to see your number 2 making his debut, and you're then trying to make a U-turn on that, saying, you might want to stay a little longer. Does he want to play both the AFCON and the Premier League and the FA Cup? So he wants to fly in between Ivory Coast and London? Because yes, United can afford a private jet for him. If that's what he wants. Plays against Wigan, or actually Wigan will be way before the start of the not even way before, because Cameroon's first game is on the 13th against Guinea. So does he want to first play Wigan, then get a private jet and join the camp in Cameroon, or will he play actually the game on 14th against Spurs at Old Trafford, then take a private jet to go back, or will he play for Cameroon against Guinea on the 13th and then take a private jet to go and play the next day against against Spurs? I feel like he has just got to decide. And again, we've seen you know signs of this unseriousness of him, because he first said he had retired when he was banished from the squad in the World Cup in Qatar. He said he had retired. Then out of nowhere, he comes out of his retirement. And now they are saying he's going for the AFCON. Then the next day he's saying, I want to stay a little longer, as long as I can. That's for me is a sign of a weak mindset, a weak character, someone who does not believe in himself, someone who is not confident in his art, in his game. And it's bad. It looks so ugly on him. Because honestly, the whole world wants to look at Altel Baindil. I'm one of those who feel actually Baindil could be, I want to say better, because I mean it's not by mistake that he was at playing at Benfica, and Onana is playing at Inter Milan in the Champions League. But I feel like Baindil is a good keeper. I've watched highlights of him. I've watched his reflexes. I've seen how he dives. And these are the things that make a good goalkeeper. Reflexes, which Andrew Onana has shown some weaknesses with in some of the goals he has conceded. Not to blame him entirely, but because of course we know that he was too exposed for one time two men at United. But we deserve to see Altel Baindil, and that's why I insist that if I am Erik ten Hag and this happens, even if Onana stayed a little longer, I would play Baindil. But also the best managers I've noticed in global football, the likes of Pep Guardiola, they rotate their goalkeepers. You have two world-class goalkeepers. Let one play the long marathon, the league, and let the other be the goalkeeper in the cup tournaments. For example, Pep Guardiola has always done it with his teams, with Man City, with Barcelona, with I think Bayern as well. I don't remember properly whether he did it with Bayern. I remember he had Ter Stegen and who I don't. But Pep Guardiola has always trusted his goalkeepers. I think it's a good thing. It doesn't make sense for you to have a good goalkeeper and keep them on the bench forever. Even in a friendly match, even in a village game, even in a charity match, you start the same goalkeeper. I thought that took something away from David De Gea a bit. I feel that is wrong for Andrew Onana, whereas Erik ten Hag wants to build him and all. I think you've got to build him, but also build your number two, because if anything happens to Andrew Onana, it will be bad for you to throw Altel Baindil in the deep end. So imagine if Baindil's debut is against Spurs. Imagine, is that fair on him? Imagine if his debut is against Spurs on the 14th at Old Trafford. That would be so unfair on him. It's only right for Baindil. Actually, for me, I would be okay Baindil starting tomorrow against Nottingham Forest. Let him start tomorrow. Let him start against Wigan. Let him start for all the rest of the games in January. And let's have time to see what he does. And when Onana returns, the world will make a proper judgment of who is better, who should be starting. So for me, I don't like the weakness. I think Andrew Onana, he lied a bit there. I think he has shown a weakness there. He doesn't believe in himself. He's not confident in his position. It's not bad. Usually, even if he stayed and he fought and fought, for me, usually such fights don't last. You will capitulate at some point. At some point, he will be exposed. He will be found out and he won't last. Yet he has got, I think, 4.5 years of a contract. So I feel like that was a weakness on Andrew Onana, to be honest. So that's a bit of it. So going back to the pre-match press conference, so going into the game, so there is positivity. I think the only new player we might see in the squad could be the Amad Diallo. I expect Diallo to be in the squad. Maybe not to start, but I think he could be in the squad because he trained well. If you watch that video, maybe in my next video, I'll show it to you if you didn't see it. But also looking at the injuries, and let me just try to remind you of our injuries and when these players are returning. So those are the injuries and when the players are returning. So Martinez, with his ankle and foot injury, is returning on the 14th of Jan. So you can see most of our players are returning this month or next month, just for the next game tomorrow or next month. So Martinez, 14th of Jan, Casemiro, 14th of Jan, Mason Mount, 8th of Jan. That's for the Wigan game, the FA Cup. Maguire, FA Cup could be there. Amrabat went injured, but he's going to the AFCON, should have been there. tomorrow. Maybe he will be. I'm not so certain whether he has left already. Luke Shaw, 30th of December as well. So he could be available tomorrow. Victor Lindelof, 8th of Jan. Ahmad Diallo, tomorrow could be available. So I think we look good. So I think tomorrow's game would give us an idea of the depth I'm talking about. And I want to see then how Erik ten Hag selects his team. After the players who are available put on such a good performance against Aston Villa, now you have all these other players coming back. What does the Tinkerman do then? Then that is where then the judgment will start. And of course, Sir Dave Brailsford and Sir Jim Ratcliffe will be watching. Guys, why do I struggle to pronounce Sir Dave Brailsford? I didn't know I have this heavy tongue until that guy's name. Let me try and Brailsford. Dave Brailsford. Sir Dave Brailsford. Oh goodness. This guy. I hope Sir Dave. Allow me to just keep calling him Sir Dave. Sir Dave. Now, Sir Dave's role, and someone was asking me about the role of Sir Dave Brailsford at Man United. So he's the head of the sports group of Ineos, owned by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. So he's like the brain, he's the man who oversees everything to do with his sports entity, because Sir Jim Ratcliffe has got Team Sky, the cycling team. He has got Niche, a football club. He has got, he's in Formula One with Mercedes. And now Manu. So this guy has got a whole huge, I think even in horses, I think as well. So he has got a whole big portfolio of sport, and Sir Dave is the man at the helm. He's the man in charge. So his role is to oversee. So he's literally the boss. So he's the boss below the boss. So Sir Jim is just given daily reports. So this is what we have done. This is what we want to do. And he advises, okay, that makes sense. Why are you doing this? Oh, okay. As the boss, the final man, he will advise. Then Dave Brailsford is the one now who goes and leads the execution. So he's like the CEO of the entire sports. So all these other people, Jean-Claude Blow and the likes, will be under him. So he's a critical guy. Yeah? He's the brain. So Jim Ratcliffe is the billionaire. He's the money man. This one is the brain. So he's a big guy. That's why he was at. You saw how these players reacted. You lose 2-0 when the guy is in the director's box for the first time. They just had to fight. That's why I say Man U is the most dangerous team to face right now. I wish we could face Man City, Arsenal, all these so-called big teams now, because the motivation is to the rooftop, is there, and it's huge. But that said, I think Man United is looking okay. We are in a good place. There is no reason to worry. I'll be back later at exactly. I'll be back at 10 p.m. That's where I am. It will be 10 p.m. That is about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's about 5 hours from now. I will be back live, and this time I'll be strictly talking about the wish list, the Man United transfer wish list, and we could attempt to break some records there. So you might want to set your timer and be there. For now, I just wanted to react to the Erik ten Hag press conference. There is not so much. I think for me, the new thing really that he said was the fact that the Ineos group wants to work with him. I felt it's important, and we needed to get that assurance from him. But in terms of players and injuries, I think there is nothing I hadn't told you. You can go back in my past videos and see it for yourself, that most of these injuries will be returning latest the 14th of Jan, like I've shown you. But United is in a good place. My name is Webb. I'll end it here. I wanted to spend 40 minutes. It's 58 seconds to 40 minutes. Guys, become a member of the United Hotspot. Comment with the super stickers so that we keep improving and growing this channel, because trust me, the 1st of January, we are doing big things. Next year is going to be bigger and better. For now, all I'm focusing on is the United Hotspot and Manchester United, because we are at a critical stage with this club and we've got to follow it to the latter. That's why you need to become a member of the Hotspot when you can. My name is Webb. It's a big G bless. I'll catch you later. Enjoy United for now.